became involved in this research. And through it, now for several years, have watched as Jesse Trinidu and David Hammer have collaborated, and then David, has been off on his own paths, and find it very impressive what David has synthesized from his own researches, conducted from, of all places, his cell in death row, as well as covering what Jesse's done, what the excellent investigative reporter J.D. Cash did too. So, and through this period, Alex, Hammer has been volunteering to step forward and tell his story. I noticed that one of your writers to the website this morning was commenting on the demeanor, the tenor of Hammer's presentation to you in that excellent hour-long interview you did last week. The human voice tells a lot about credibility. That's all Hammer has ever asked to do, is to step forward and tell his story. But the FBI has fought tooth and nail all the way up to federal appellate courts to shut Hammer up. And I think any reasonable mind would have to ask, 15 years after the fact, why is that so important that you not allow a man to tell a story?
Well, even more than that, certainly there's a cover-up going on, and they're fighting very hard to continue it. But everything he's been saying years later with Jesse Trinidu's lawsuits comes out in federal documents, comes out in major newspapers. It comes out that the feds were basically running Elohim City, that there were warnings, that the head of the FBI anti-terrorism group was there the week before and the day of the event and lied about it. He wasn't in Dallas.
Absolutely.
The list goes on. And this was a government operation separate from anything Hammer says. It's just incredible. The amount of evidence from all of your research. What's the bottom line on Oklahoma City?
Well, every reporter, every journalist always has a working theory. And which is subject to change. The more you learn, the more you know. But I think a very important dot that Hammer connects. And by the way, if I may share for your listeners, this book is only available one place: the website for the publisher, www.authorhouse.com. That's the only place you can read this book. My working theory, based upon my own research and watching what Hammer and Jesse Trinidu have developed, and I think this is the dot that Hammer connects, a very important one, Alex, is the use of criminals as informants reporting directly to federal law enforcement. I think that's going to be a major element of this story once the whole story is told. As Hammer points out, virtually all of the members of this Aryan Republican Army bank robbery gang that Timothy McVeigh fingered as his on-the-ground support squad in Oklahoma City on April 19, virtually every one of them at one time or another, before, during, or after the Oklahoma City bombing, was functioning as a criminal informant to federal law enforcement.
Well, we know the feds do this everywhere. They'll have a convicted arsonist, child molester, bank robber, and then they'll be used in court against people who don't even have a criminal record. So here's the government saying, don't listen to David Hammer. He's a convict on death row, but then listen to all of our criminal informants that we're using. And then when they're clean criminal informant, Howell was inside Elohim City and came out and said they're getting ready to blow up the federal building. They indicted her just to shut her up because one agency didn't know what the other agency was doing. But finishing up with that, we need to talk about Mr. Hammer, what we know about him now being basically punished, and his letter that made it out. Have we heard anything else from him?
Actually, yes. I'm happy to say, Alex, that this morning I have had another email from Hammer. He remains extremely concerned about what is to come. Obviously, this disciplinary, procedure will go forward. How heavy it's going to be is unknown so far. As you know, in the email he sent yesterday, which you posted on your website, he was, fearing that it was going to be heavy consequences and was expecting that all of his communications would be shut down. So far, that has not happened. His plea was, if this makes sense to people out there, if he is representing this story and the continuing research effort, he was encouraging people to be in touch with the prison. If I may add, Alex, one of the amazing, not so amazing to me as I come out of the America's Most Wanted enterprise, which I worked for some years, the information that is starting to surface through, your listeners. We've had, very interesting emails, factual, informational emails, just continuing to add, clues and leads to this. This is what could be the tipping point of this entire investigation, is that if, as David Hammer has shaken the tree here to bring information in, and as you have, had the courage to, get on the air and really give this a hearing, let's solve this. That's basically what Hammer says in his book. Let's solve this. And there are more very important moments just down the horizon. And one of them is Jesse Trinidu's fight over these surveillance tapes. And why is the FBI, again, fighting tooth and nail to keep these pictures secret? You asked me, what is my theory? I think the videotape that the FBI is still holding is going to show us pictures of people who were with Timothy McVeigh on the morning of 4/19/95. And I think those pictures will be revelatory as to the potential, government involvement in some way or other here.
But for 15 years, they've been declaring national security on all those different videotapes. But we do have the witnesses that day and the days before who did see McVeigh all over the building,
Sure.
In the ATF offices, you name it. I mean, these are credible people who are on record that work there and who saw him.
Yes, I think all of this goes exactly back to that. And to your listeners who are kind of shouting, "Don't listen to David Hammer," I would just say, remember that more than a dozen honest witnesses in Oklahoma and Kansas swore they saw John Doe number 2 with Timothy McVeigh. And who was that man?
Just incredible. I want to get you back for a full hour in the near future to really go over Oklahoma City from your perspective, because we can't just do it justice.
I'd be so glad to do that. And I was it was a tremendous interview you did, Alex. You brought, this was the fight to keep this silent, and you brought this story out, and people did hear David Hammer in his own words, and I thought he was persuasive.
No, so did my family and friends that heard it. But again, if you've really researched the info, you know how persuasive, because he was saying a lot of these things before it ever even came out. And a lot of this has now been confirmed through the lawsuits of Jesse Trinidu in the federal court. Margaret Roberts, is there a website or some personal site folks can visit of yours?
Yes, definitely. Please visit www.deadly-secrets.com. deadly-secrets.com, and there is a box for information. More than anything, David Hammer would say, were he able to be here to say it himself, is somebody out there knows who was behind the Oklahoma City bombing. If anybody that's listening has any fragment of information firsthand about that, particularly those of you in Oklahoma City, please go to the website. Please be in touch. We are not going to stop. We are going to solve this case.
Well, God bless you, ma'am. I look forward to talking to you again. We appreciate your years of tireless effort. You've gotten so much information out from Terry Nichols and others. Margaret Roberts, we'll talk to you again very soon.
Thank you, Alex. Keep up the good work.
You too. We're going to come back, take your phone calls. Folks in Japan.
Times are tough, and you gotta stretch that dollar. A special invitation for listeners to save. Sign up at dubleyshoppers.com today and start paying the absolute guaranteed lowest internet retail prices for the coolest stuff. New premium brand name TVs, laptops, watches, camcorders, Blu-ray players, and more. All with factory warranties, just like you'd get from a retail chain, except for the absolute guaranteed lowest internet retail prices. They start low and go lower with our reverse auctions. You save even more with your first $8 auction purchase. Doobly will give you an instant $25 dining certificate good at thousands of nationwide restaurants, plus a $500 vacation discount voucher, usable at hundreds of resorts around the U.S. and world. Sign up today at dubleyshoppers.com. Pay the absolute guaranteed lowest internet retail prices, and listeners receive special rewards. It's worth a peek to keep money in your pocket and the coolest stuff in your home and garage. Sign up today at dubleyshoppers.com. That's DUBLI shoppers.com. You'll be glad you did.
You may be arrested and or subject to other police action.
Tyranny is here. The grim future foretold in 1984 has become reality.
It really says that the state is God.
The United States is now recognized globally as one